How's it going? This is Dylan with Dylan Pickups Blog. Today we're going to talk about tone caps and the tone circuit in your guitar and how it works and what it does. Stay tuned. Alright, so tone caps. The tone circuit in our guitar. How does it work? Which ones do we choose? Let's talk about this real briefly. The other day when we were discussing volume and we were discussing which pots we put in our guitar, we learned that the higher resistance pots basically gave us a higher overall available frequency in the guitar. So a 250K pot, that ceiling of how much high frequency goes through to the amp is lower than the one in the guitar. So for lack of a better word, we're going to use this line right here as all available frequencies that can go through the guitar as produced, well, as represented by the pickups. Okay, so we have our pickup signal coming in to the guitar and coming into our tone circuit, and this is the all available frequencies, the highest ceiling of available high frequencies that can go through to the amp. What happens with the tone circuit is not a voltage divider like a volume knob. It's actually basically a variable resistor. It's a little bit different. So what we do is, you see on a tone pot we only use 2 of the 3 legs, and that's because we use it as a variable resistor. The signal comes in and the capacitor is soldered to the back of the pot going to ground, and it takes whatever frequencies are filtered by it and short them to ground, and then it sends the rest to the amp. Now the thing about a tone circuit in a guitar is when the volume knob is all the way up, I'll apologize, the tone knob is all the way up, this tone cap deal doesn't have anything to do with anything. The only thing that affects it is whatever ceiling is held by the cap. So if you have a 500, your guitar is going to be brighter with the tone knob than with a 250, brighter with the tone knob all the way up. The only time it really matters is when you start to use your tone knob, because a lot of people are like, well, I just play with the thing on 10 all the time. You are handicapping your tone because there is so much that can happen when you start using your tone knob. So which tone cap do you use? Because a tone cap is a low pass filter, okay? And what that means is everything, this line, if this line represents all available frequencies going to the amp, then this line, these lines over here represent cutoff frequencies for the various values of caps, okay? So the lowest number of cap is going to cut off the least amount of high frequencies, which means when you turn your tone knob down, it's only going to cut off the high frequencies from here up, leaving your guitar relatively bright, even with the tone knob all the way down. 22, it's going to be a little bit more, 33, and 47 being the darkest. Anything from here, and this is just a representation on my whiteboard, but anything from here up is going to start being filtered to ground and cut out of your signal. This is because a passive circuit in a guitar, you cannot boost anything, you cannot add anything to it. The pickup signal coming in and going out to the amp is all you have. Anything you put into a tone circuit on a guitar, unless it is active somehow, is cutting frequencies out. So when we say, well, I moved my knobs on my guitar and I boosted my mid-range, you actually filtered other frequencies out, emphasizing the mid-range, okay? So what we're doing, all we're doing is cutting. So the bigger the number on the cap, the more high frequencies, the lower the ceiling is going to be the cutoff frequency for that cap. And when you turn the tone knob down, anything from here up, representative by my graph for each of these numbers, is getting cut out. So this means that your 0.015 is going to cut out the least amount of high frequencies, and when you turn that tone knob all the way down, the guitar is going to be still relatively, by percentage of what's available, pretty bright. 22, it's going to be a little bit darker with the tone knob all the way down. The 33 is going to be even a little bit darker, and the 47 is going to be even a little bit darker than that. So which pot do I put in my guitar? Well, it just depends on what you want to cut out. And people say, well, it only matters if I turn it all the way down. It doesn't, because as soon as this starts to happen, and the impedance in this, the resistance in this resistor starts to rise, the more of this whole frequency starts to go down. So the tone cap, what's the way to say it? Yeah, almost have a longer throw really on a 47. I like to use a darker cap because it gives me, I think it gives me a lot longer range. Even on pickups that are already dark, because as we talked about before, you can turn your tone knob up and take your effect out. So personally, I like to use a 500K pot, leave the guitar relatively bright, even with single coils, and then use a darker cap, and it gives me like a real long range. My tone knob feels real long, if that makes sense. Like and then depending on the taper of the pot, so let's talk about that real quick, just super quickly. There are linear pot tapers, which means when we turn the pot, it goes absolutely in a straight line. And then there are audio pot tapers that go kind of like this. So as you get down to 0, it's like more steep. And that's also a personal choice. And a lot of people will say, well, you only use certain kind of pot in guitars and you use other pot. Just use whatever you want. Personally, I like an audio taper pot on my tone knob because like I said, with this combination, it feels like I have a real long tone knob and I can use it for a lot of different stuff. The cool part about it too is you can use it with a lot of different pickups because it opens up the available cut frequencies when you have this kind of combination. Alright, now let's talk about tone caps themselves. And I'm not going to get into what you should buy, and we'll go ahead and put some pictures of some stuff in the written part of the blog so you can understand what there are, because there are your Mylar caps. There's the real super cheap ones that come in lower price guitars that are like a little brown chiclet. There are orange drops. There are the tropical fish ones that look like a clay with stripes on them. There are bumblebees, which is a big time misnomer. Do your research on bumblebee caps, because there is a certain humongous guitar brand who's putting them in all their reissues, and all they are is basically a wrapped up cheap capacitor to make it look like a bumblebee. So do your research on that stuff. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you what cap to buy, because that is very subjective to what you like as far as how it sounds. And there's a lot of review videos on the internet and guys, a comparison with, you know, a bunch of them hooked up and all that. So you can do all that yourself. One thing I do want to talk about though is how to read a capacitor, because this is very, very, very confusing. Typically, let's see, 0, 0, 0, 4, 7 to, this would be a 4, 7, 1. And a .047 would be get this out of the way, would be a 473. Okay, so the way this works is the first two numbers, if you look at like an orange drop, and it's let's see, a lot of times an orange drop cap will look like this, and it'll say 473K, and then there will be, I don't know, like 89 or some other kind of numbers down here. What does this mean, and how can you pick it out of your drawer in your desk and get the right one? So the first two numbers are the ones you're really concerned about, because that's going to be the numeric number. Now the third one is the multiplier. This is really, 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 really small. In a guitar, what you're looking for is 2 away from that. So 471 to 473. You're looking for this 473 right here, because it moves the multiplier to here, and you have your .047 microfarad cap. Now, If this was a 22, it would be 223. If this was a 15, it would be 153. And so on. So check for that. This last number right here, or this letter, is K. Now K is the letters. It goes from 10% up to like 80%, and this is the tolerance number, and it starts with B and it goes up. K is 10%. Personally, I like to use anything below K for my capacitors, and this is all in what you pay for them, because lower tolerance capacitor or higher tolerance capacitors is going to have a lower number closer to A, usually like in the actually even a J is 5%, so that's even good enough. But if you went with a 47 and had anything higher than a K, then you could give up 20% of your tone knob just because of the cap was terrible. So make sure that when you do this, or at least I like to make sure that when I do this, get one with a number that is K, I check them sometimes, or lower. And the reason I mention it is because most guys don't have a multimeter in their house that has something you can read capacitance with and check it against what the thing says. So if you go, so long and the short of it is you really want a capacitor that has the 3 on the end and then whatever value you have on the beginning, and you want K or less. Okay, for the other numbers on the bottom are like heat numbers, so you don't want to heat your guitar up above 1,000 degrees or whatever, so you don't even need to worry about that. But that's it. Oh, and the other thing, you're never gonna have 400 volts of electricity going through your guitar, so you don't need to put a big huge honking cap on your tone cap or on your tone pot. A lot of people do that. We're talking millivolts, so a 20 volt cap is going to be enough. So you don't need to do that either. So I hope this helps. Just remember that this is your cutoff frequency. Anything above it goes away, and anything below it stays in this order. And this is how you read a capacitor. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please let us know. And if this brings up a question, you're like, well, I want to know more about this or whatever, definitely let us know, and we will add it to the collection of blog posts. Thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow.